New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
You probably know the feeling. Sweaty, fast breathing, quick heart rate. That's a cortisol spike. It feels awful, and its imbalance is the cause of your anxiety. Rebalance Health's 3-part anxiety system helps address it at the root. Rebalance Health lozenges are natural and designed for optimal absorption, providing 24-hour relief. Live life fully without feeling like you're fighting for it. Get 50% off your first month with code CALM23 at rebalancehealth.com.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. So last night we got a lot of new followers after 48 hours aired. So they may not be listening right now because they got to go way back. But when you get here, welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. And we hit over 8,000 subscribers on YouTube last night, which is amazing. So if you haven't already, please go subscribe, hit the little bell button. It'll let you know anytime something new is updated. So I'm a little late tonight. Been trying to plan a 17th birthday getaway for my oldest daughter, Taylor. She wants to head down to Charleston for a few days. So I'm a little late getting this out, but it's Sunday. So anyways, if you follow me on social media, I posted earlier that I found some things today that I didn't know, and they kind of blew my mind. So this came from an interview with Sarena, and she did 2 interviews that I know of. The one that I'm referring to was April 28th of last year, 2021. And we're going to run through this real quick and then hopefully have some time to get back into that main timeline. I will tell you when we get to the part that shocked me. So she explains that she's only seen Lori 4 times in person. Number 1, the Preparing a People conference in November of 2018. The second time at a girls' weekend in March 2019. And then Sarena originally lived in Connecticut and then moved to Arizona. So she saw Lori just twice after that move, once at a lunch and a last time at a meeting at Lori's house, and when she started asking questions about what happened with Charles. So she explains that she came to Arizona in November for that Preparing a People conference, and at the time she had only met Jason Mao. So he introduced her to Gib over the phone, and they talked, and since Sarena was long distance coming for that conference, Gib invited her to stay at her house. So when Sarena got to Arizona for the conference, they actually end up and stayed at Lori's house. And that's when she first physically met both Lori and Chad. And she said they would have these little morning meetings that Friday that she got into town, or, the weekend of that conference at Lori's before they would go to the venue. And they called them little fireside gatherings, but the actual conference was somewhere else. And she said Lori was teaching things that went against the LDS faith, and that Lori pulled her aside by herself that Sunday and said some things about multiple probations. And so Sarena said she felt very mixed. Part of her wanted to believe it, and she said she had experienced deja vu many times throughout her life, and it explains those moments in her life. And at that time, she really didn't hear Chad say anything that kind of went against the LDS faith. But she came back to Arizona in March of 2019. And the detective asked, when asked about Lori talking about zombies, Sarena said her understanding is that the number 1 miracle that Jesus performed was casting out evil spirits. And when Satan went against God, it said he was cast to the earth. And Sarena said that Lori took that as evil people could be here on earth and people could be possessed by evil spirits. So to cast them out, Lori explained to her that Satan was ramping up his powers and her job was to cast out those zombies and she needed help. And each one of this group of girls had something to bring to the table. And Sarena said it was a spiritual casting out like Jesus did. And Sarena said from her perspective, it was all with good intentions. They were just trying to help get the world rid of these evil spirits. And Sarena thinks that Lori brought her into the fold because she's spiritual. And also, Sarena was outside of that little Gilbert bubble. If you remember, she's from Connecticut. And Sarena said she had had spiritual experiences and she thinks that Lori took that and manipulated it into kind of what she wanted. And then Lori asked Sarena if she had been baptized. And then Sarena said she had. And then Lori asked if she had been spiritually baptized by fire, which apparently is explained in the New Testament. So Sarena said she wasn't sure. And then Lori asked her to elaborate a bit on her spiritual experiences. So the investigators wanted to talk about these castings, and Lori always directed them. We heard that from Christina as well. Lori said that when we're born, our spirits are tied to our bodies, and we have something like 3,000 strings or attachments to us. And as you go through life, or once you get closer to death, those spirits and those bonds kind of break in different ways. So regarding Charles, she said Lori told her something happened to Charles, and Sarena wasn't sure exactly what it was. She thought maybe it was a car accident, but she wasn't sure. That allowed the spirits to take over the attachments and bonds we're born with. Just bear with me, guys. And break those in different ways. And they can build their own attachments to your body. So when they're casting out, in essence, they sever those bonds to the body so that that spirit can be released. Lori did say the spirit would eventually die and a spirit would be released to move on. And Sarena thought that might mean that Charles would die as a result of that. She said she was only there once in March. And there she left out Melaniece as being part of this group, but I think Melanie Gibbs said that Melaniece was there. So this March Girls Weekend, we talked about it last episode, I believe. She said it was Melanie Gibb. Like I said, she didn't say Melaniece, but I think Melaniece was there. Christina, Zulema, and Nicole. And so they got into a circle and Lori asked them to be part of the prayer and to say something to cast out. So Sarena said, and we kind of know this now, they would call on the elements to try to cast these spirits out. And Sarena was in charge of water. So what Lori said is that God called down water to form the world, and they would use that water to cleanse. And there's a lot of power in water. And that element was used by Sarena, who is in charge of the water, to cleanse the body. This is just, man. She would say, in the name of Jesus Christ. She would ask for the element of water to come and cleanse Charles, but she said it was bigger and that they would really more ask to cleanse the states and the earth. And Charles was kind of more of a practice since he was already possessed. Now, here's the thing that really blew my mind that I had not read. Maybe you guys had. But Lori said that Tylee tried to distract her, and it was hard living with someone who was so dark. Sarena thinks that this was said over the phone to her before she came in March, but she wasn't positive. She never mentioned anything about JJ being dark. But remember in the last episode, sometime in the spring, which would be kind of around this time, Melanie Gibb was on the phone with Lori, and Lori called Tylee a zombie, and Tylee overheard it and says, "Not me, Mom," which was because Tylee didn't want to babysit JJ. And she also had told Melanie Gibb that Tylee had turned into a zombie when she was 12 or 13. So that just really blew my mind that she's telling Sarena, who is very new to her, that she was trying to distract her and it was hard living with someone who was so dark. I mean, yeah. So if you guys have heard that, let me know. This was in the interview that's on YouTube. It's the second interview. You can watch it, but I was just blown away. She explained that they would go in a circle. Lori would always start it off. She said they did one casting over the phone, and it was a general one of the state things where you're ridding the state of zombies. Melaniece was on for that one. And Sarena said she got kicked out because she asked too many questions about the whole zombie circle thing. And she said she wasn't completely comfortable with it, but she put it aside. And she says she believes casting out is a real thing. Sarena also asked a lot of questions about who's light, who's dark, and the whole probation thing, which Sarena said was coming 100% from Chad. And the other thing, she also said at one point she couldn't remember if it was this time or the next time that Lori was worried about Tylee. And Sarena said she couldn't remember if Lori said Tylee was dark or possessed, but she thinks that Lori said Tylee was dark and it was Charles that was possessed. Here's another thing. She said Lori mentioned Tylee being dark multiple times. And she said part of the reason was because of the abuse Tylee suffered. But she said it was hard because Tylee was a constant disruption to her mission. That is what blew my mind, to hear what a minute ago I just said about Tylee. And then, she's a constant disruption to Lori's mission. I think Tylee called a spade, and this is all hogwash. And like, Tylee ain't here for this, y'all. So they were telling Sarena light and dark numbers for her own family. She didn't like that at all. Lori had told her that she had no need for repentance. And she said that she's come to that stage of being translated. And Sarena said she told Lori that's just plain wrong. And Sarena said she really pushed back on that. But she said Lori says she got that from the Bible, allegedly. I don't know what Bible. But yeah. So Sarena said she has dreams and they're predictive. And she shared some of those with Chad, and some of her dreams have happened. So eventually Sarena got sick, and Lori and Chad said Sarena had been breached and was being indoctrinated at night. There was a hole in her, and Julie Rowe was attacking her, and Sarena was no longer trustworthy. Sarena said that her and Zulema were close, and that Zulema was actually assigned to her to take care of this problem. And she said Zulema was 100% on board with Chad and Lori at this point. She estimated that she talked to Chad 3 times in person, once at the Preparing a People conference in Arizona, once in Boise. And Sarena said her and her husband went to Rexburg to find a place to move, and she met him there. She emailed him and maybe texted a few times, but she really just can't remember about the texting. And they talked on the phone once or twice about spiritual stuff. And she said with Chad supposedly being a visionary, she had never met someone like that before. So she would ask him, what do you see for certain things? The other time that she talked to him at that Preparing a People conference in Boise, he talked a lot about his visions. But at the hotel with her, Gib, Zulema, and Audrey, Lori was not there for this one. She said he gave all of them a priesthood blessing and just answered whatever questions that they had. And Zulema was the one who asked most of the questions, by the way. Chad told Sarena they were related in a previous life when he was Methuselah. His daughter was Lori, and Sarena was Lori's daughter, so she was his granddaughter in a previous life. She said she got pushed out of the group after she saw Lori maybe once or twice after moving to Arizona. And she said actually she did not want to move to Arizona because Lori and her crew were there and weren't talking to her, but they felt like Arizona was where her and her husband felt that was where they needed to be. But she said Zulema had a welcome lunch for her, which was she called bizarre. And she said Lori, Alex, Zulema, Melaniece, and Nicole were there. And she said her and Nicole talked amongst themselves, and the rest kind of were at a separate table talking amongst themselves. She was asked about meeting Alex at one of the gatherings at Lori's, and she said it was very casual and she talked to him. Lori told Sarena that she was part of the 144,000, and her and Chad were leaders, and their job was to go and hunt the righteous to restore the earth and prepare for the second coming. She also gave Sarena her eternal name, which was Rena, and that name came from Chad. So again, Chad talks about Tammy, and Sarena couldn't remember if she heard this first or second hand, but she was told, don't be surprised if you hear about Tammy being in a car accident or dying, because Chad needed her gone to complete his mission. He couldn't do it with Tammy around. Sarena said Chad personally said the same thing about her husband in either Rexburg or Boise. She couldn't remember, that he would die because Sarena needed to complete her mission. And he didn't say how her husband would die, but she said it made her sick to her stomach, and she went home and cried because she said she believed him. And she said she was so deceived in all of this stuff that she believed him. She said they made her believe she was special and needed because she was chosen. And she said she was in a very lonely place in Connecticut, and it made her feel like she was a part of something good, which goes back to that love bombing. And we've always said on here, it's kind of seems like a group of people that didn't fit anywhere. So when asked, she said she still keeps in contact with Zulema. They recently had reconnected at the time of this interview. Sarena apologized to her. Melanie Gibb reached out to her in January of 2020, which, as you guys know, is right when all this hit mainstream media. And Gibb wanted to meet and share some things with her and apologized for how she treated her and explained pretty much everything she knew, including all of the bad things they said about Sarena after her departure. So that was just like huge news to me. I have never heard that about Tylee. I knew she had called Tylee dark, but in the way of the mission, it's hard living with somebody so dark. That was all very new to me. I don't know. Maybe you guys have heard it. So we're going to keep going here for a bit. We're going to jump back into this timeline. At the last part, we just talked about this. We left off when Lori had told Melanie Gibb that Tylee was a zombie. And then Alex texted Lori, Ned is still alive, just confirmed. Lori responds, it's not Ned, it's a new one, which I believe is Garrett was the next entity, apparently. So March 26th, Charles texted with a friend about Lori, and these texts were revealed on Dateline. Charles texts a friend, 58 days, believe it. The beautiful, sweet Lori you and I know is gone. She actually believes I'm not Charles. She says an evil spirit named Nick Schneider murdered me and is using me to violate her and her family. Not kidding. Gotta get out of here. So the friend says, holy cannoli, I can't even relate. Who the F is Nick Schneider? The last time I saw Lori, she couldn't say enough wonderful things about, and it dots off, it doesn't say. Charles says, I truly feel there's no good ending for her. Emotionally, JJ is about 4. He will remember bits and pieces, but thankfully not the pain she's put a lot of people through on her mission from God. And he put that in quotes. The friend said, Charles, I appreciate you trusting me with your heart issue. You are safe here. I will continue to pray for you and your family, and you have a friend here that you can truly trust. I have to go for now, and we'll keep you updated. Sleep well, my friend. Go with God. So there are some texts with no timestamps, but Charles says things have changed so dramatically in the past 6 months. Something snapped, and it's so unbelievable and scary. I'm thankful she doesn't see JJ. She wants him and for me to disappear. Seriously. Y'all, it's just hindsight. Wow. Charles says, it's the freakiest thing I've ever experienced. She's with a group of people called Woke and preparing a people. So March 28th, Lori shows up in the Arizona house, and Kay and Charles, Kay's his sister, they're packing his things. Now, Kay did an interview with Gray Hughes Investigates and says that at the time she showed up, Charles offered to fly Lori to Houston on March 31st to see JJ. And Lori says she couldn't because she made a commitment to a friend in Hawaii. And actually, when she showed up at this time in Arizona, she didn't see JJ because he was at school. Didn't even wait till he was out of school to see him. And so with Kay there helping Charles, JJ spends the week with Larry in Louisiana. And they talk to Nate Eaton about that week. And it's just so sweet. Larry said, I'm so thankful I had that week to be with him. It was just he and I, so we could basically do what he wanted to do in whatever time he wanted to do it. I thank God for that. So Kay said when Lori showed up, she just walked in and started fussing at him. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with her? He was sitting down. She had her hands on her hips. What are you doing? Why are you moving? I can't believe this. Why are you keeping JJ from me? Kay said it was just on. And he said, JJ and I are moving because your family has totally gone away, just like you did. They won't talk to us. They won't nothing. And so I'm moving to be close to my family. And Lori said, what family? He said, my family in Louisiana. Kay said it was like they didn't even exist. It was crazy. So they talked for a while. Kay said it was mostly Lori fussing loudly, but by the time she left, Kay said she was sitting in the kitchen table on the computer, and Lori walked over to her. And Kay said, Lori, I'm sorry this has happened with y'all. We can talk. And Lori just said, I just miss you. And then she started tears flowing. And I thought she didn't even cry when Charles was talking to her. Kay said the whole thing was weird that day. I bet it was weird. And so the next day, I believe, is when Kay actually saw Lori in person for the last time. Kay also told Keith Morrison on Dateline that Lori comes in with her phone on, like she's videoing, expecting maybe for Charles to get up and beat her up, like there's going to be some big drama scene. And she said Charles sees her and starts crying. So this is the time when Gibb said she met Kay briefly, which is when they were packing Charles up. She said this at Chad's preliminary hearing in August of 2020, by the way. And Colby told Justin Lum from Fox 10 Phoenix that normally he and his mom would call or text every other day, but up until she moved out of the home with Charles in January. But by this time, when, late March, early April, Colby said it became more of a check-in every few weeks or even once a month. So on March 31st, Lori texts Zulema and asked if they can get the girls together at her house that evening for an hour or two. And Zulema said it's a family day for her and asked if they could do it the next day. So Lori says maybe. Lori also said she had just got back from her 2-year-old granddaughter's birthday party. So in spring, Melaniece's dad notices a change in her. He said her mood was flat. She would use the terms light and dark spirits, use the term warrior often, and spoke a lot of the second coming. So on March 28th of 2020, Melaniece's dad, Steve Cope, spoke with investigators and gave a little bit of a background on Melaniece's childhood and the divorce from her mother. So he confirmed he was the father of Melanie and the ex-husband of Stacy Cope. He was divorced from Stacy at the time she got sick and passed away, and he had custody of Melaniece following that divorce. He explained that when he asked Stacy's father, Barry, for her hand in marriage, Barry made an odd comment. He said he needed to know before he married Stacy that Stacy had a 50% chance of ending up with the same, and it's redacted, he was diagnosed as having. Barry explained that he was diagnosed as, and it's redacted, I'm thinking maybe some kind of mental illness, just totally allegedly a guess on my part. Stephen was surprised by this statement and married Stacy because he loved her. And he believed that he and Stacy could make it through anything. But in 1995, Stephen divorced Stacy and got full custody of Melaniece. Stephen described it as 1 year later, however, Stacy passed away. She passed away in 1998. And he stated he was notified that Stacy went into, it's redacted, but I believe she went into like diabetic shock. And he learned the rest of the family was in Hawaii on vacation, and Alex was home in Austin, Texas with Stacy. So Stacy was taken to a hospital and was later transferred to a hospice facility. He went with Melanie so she could say goodbye to her mother. And Stephen was told by Alex he could not go in the room, but Melaniece could. And Stephen told Alex that Melaniece was not going in that room without him. And so Stephen said eventually he was allowed to go in the room, and Melaniece tucked a handwritten note in Stacy's hand, and that was the last time that they saw Stacy. And that is sad. You know, regardless of how you feel about Melaniece and her role in all this now, as a little girl to tuck a note in your dying mother's hand just has to shape things. It really has to affect so many things. So Steve noted that Janice Cox's brother Jason was at the hospice at the same time as Stacy. Stephen said Jason was frustrated because Stacy's family was not leaving Hawaii to take care of Stacy's arrangements. Jason told Stephen their response was they were trying. It was Stephen's belief that the Cox family never came back for Stacy's death. He tells what he thinks her death was caused by. It's redacted. He believed two things damaged her, and it's redacted. I think maybe liver or pancreas. I don't know, y'all. It's supposed to be noted that this investigator has been unable to find documents such as police reports or coroner reports related to Stacy's death. So on April 6, 2020, Melaniece's dad, Steve Cope, spoke with investigators again to clarify some dates. He wanted to clarify some dates that he had given me because when he spoke from before, Steve and Stacy, which is Melaniece's mother, they were divorced on June 26, 1996. Melaniece was 6 years old at the time, and there was a brief separation of him and Melaniece prior to the divorce when Stacy took Melaniece to stay with Janice and Barry Cox in Rialto, California. He said they were separated for approximately 6 months, and Steve feels Lori may have been there as well during this time that Melaniece was staying. And this is very redacted, but, you know, it still kind of gives some insight. The investigator said I'd asked Steve how he had obtained custody of Melaniece. Steve believes incidents involved with, and it's redacted, and violence was the reason why he was awarded custody. And as we know, Melaniece was their only child in common. So just a few more things and we'll be done with tonight. May 9th, 2020, Melaniece and Ian talked to Nate Eaton from East Idaho News. So she gives her version of the story regarding her history and her mom. She said that her mom almost died when she was giving birth to her due to deep vein thrombosis. When Mel was 6, her dad took her, saying they were going to get gas. She says that her dad turned her mom's power off, cut off her credit cards, and they hid in a hotel for a couple of months. Then a nasty custody battle took place. Stacy fought as much as she could, but ran out of money and then got sick. She said her dad cut off communication with the whole Cox family, and she said her dad told lies about them to her. Lori called and told her Stacy was in a coma and probably wouldn't make it. And then Melanie said, I've always loved and trusted Lori. So much unconditional love from her, and I wouldn't want that phone call from anyone else. After she was 9 and her mom passed, her dad didn't let her have any contact with the Cox family. So Melaniece said her mom had type 1 diabetes and gastroparesis, which means she couldn't absorb nutrients. And she said also that her dad was unfaithful to her mom. So this gets confusing unless I misunderstood, but she said her dad didn't let her have contact with the Cox family. But then she also said after Stacy died, Barry and Janice looked after her a lot. And she said Lori was busy, but would take her places. And she said when she was younger, she was actually closer to Adam than Alex. So later on, when she got to be around 15, she Googled Adam and found him and reconnected with the family. And she said when she was younger, the Cox family tried sending packages, but her dad would return them. And she said she wishes he would be real about the reasons why. She said up until 3 years ago, she did not know that her dad was telling people that Stacy died of anorexia and mental illness. That could be part of that redaction up there. Melaniece said it was manipulation of her not being able to absorb nutrients and that her dad ran with it. She said that's the same thing that's happening with her court cases. At this point, she's still in a custody battle with Brandon for their 4 kids. And she says she has all of her mom's medical records. And she said it's like her own life, where her kids have been taken away from her. So we're going to stop there. And I just, like I said, it just blew me away to hear that about Tylee from Serena's point of view. I just hadn't heard it, but it goes to show you way back in March, Lori's telling people Tylee's dark. She's affecting her mission. This comes in later around the time of the move to Rexburg and some text messages between Alex and Zulema. We will get there. But for tonight, that's it. If you don't mind, like and subscribe on YouTube. Share the podcast if you know somebody who wants to know the case but doesn't know where to start. This is episode, I think, 21. So there's lots to binge. All right, guys, have a good evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.